Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Welcome our Montanaro Home Church. Let us prepare our heart to heaven. Let's sing a song. Song number 51, the Belvedere Song. 51, the Belvedere Song.
I know a place where the sun shines like gold, where the cherries bloom forth in the snow, and down underneath is the loveliest place, where the four-leaf clovers grow. One leaf is for faith, and one is for hope, and one is for love, you know, and God put another one in for you. If you search, you will find where they grow. But you must have faith, and you must have hope. You must love and be strong and so. If you work, if you wait, you will find a place where the four-leaf clovers grow. I know a place where the sun shines like gold, where the cherries bloom forth in the snow, and down underneath is the loveliest place, where the four-leaf clovers grow, where the four-leaf clovers grow, where the four-leaf clovers grow.
Thank you. Let us stand up and greet the Heavenly Father, God, and true parents. Today is Sunday morning, the 2019 March 24. Let us bow to Heavenly Father, God, and true parents. Come back. Hello. Join me in prayer. 살아계시는 하나님 아버지, 참부모님, 안녕하십니까? We are so grateful to come in front of you to sincere heart and prayer. We offer our life to you. Heavenly Father, true parents, we are so grateful. Now the true parents uniting in one in the heaven and earth. We are so long time we are waiting for this day to opening up heavenly kingdom in this earth and heaven. True parents succeeded to totally unity in a heart and love and lineage from you. We are so grateful. Now is the time, very important this time, we can unite in our heart and you can you can inherit their heart and faith and unity. The original world was intended that man and woman love each other eternally and create the beautiful family and nation and the world. That is the original world with you and the human being can totally unity in love. That is beautiful heavenly kingdom. Now the door is opening up in the toward kingdom of heaven in this earth and heaven. We are so grateful to announce this good news for the world. Yet we have a responsibility to fulfill our responsibility. Each of us was asked to challenge to inherit their true parent standard of love and faith and obedience. We will hope. Always we can think of you and pray deeply what's going on your world. Still, this substantial world can not recognize our true parents and true parents' victory. We have believer. We have to make a total unity of true parents and three kingship, through that we can bring kingdom in the substantially here in this earth and heaven. Please guide us, encourage us to unite with your direction, and we can create your kingdom in this earth and heaven. Please guide today. You can think deeply and pray about it, and digesting your word, and we can become one with your word, and we can create our character like you, like Christ. Please guide today, and please guide our pastor can deliver your word, and we can understand and digest, and in the daily life we can practice. Please guide today and this week. Thank you very much. I report in the name of Raman and Tamik Montanaro, blessed central family. Aju, Amen. Thank you. Please seated. Welcome our Pastor Montanaro. Welcome.
Okay, so hi everybody.
Hi. Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
It's Sunday, March 24th. Technically it's spring. We did get hit with a big 10-inch snowfall just 2 days ago, so another day. But it's melting, and we're coming out of the winter now. I want to title my sermon today, The Kingdom. The Kingdom. And I want to talk about some kind of things that may be considered in-house, meaning some things that are really particular to our movement, the unification movement. So for those of you who are not part of our movement, who like to listen to our sermons, I hope that this can give you some insight into what's going on right now in the unification movement, and that it also has relevance for you, even though maybe you're not so familiar with our movement. For those of you who are in our movement, who are watching, I hope this can help to further the discussion about where we're heading as a movement. The reason I chose this topic is that just last Sunday, we didn't have Sunday service. If you realize I didn't post a sermon, I just posted a message saying that I didn't have a sermon, because we went down to Pennsylvania to attend the Sanghwa, or Divine Ascension and Harmony ceremony for True Mother Hyun Kang. This in itself is very controversial, because Hyung Jin Nim, after Mrs. Kang came out from Korea, she was the first disciple of Reverend Moon's in South Korea after he escaped from the North. And she joined in 1952, in May of 1952. She was about 6 or 7 years younger than Father, so she was probably 23, 24, I'd be 24 years old by Western counting, 26 by Korean counting, when she joined Father. So she followed Father for, I think, 68 years. And 67 years. And so when Father died, our movement went into something of a tailspin. Controversies and scandals and questions about leadership came up. Who should lead our movement? And Father had made it clear before he died that Hyung Jin Nim, his youngest son, Hyung Jin Nim, and Hyung Jin Nim's wife Yeon Nim should be the leaders of our movement. And they had taken responsibility. They had actually given the blessing ceremony 4 times. Father had guided Hyung Jin Nim to give the blessing, which is the central rite of our church. He had taught Hyung Jin Nim how to administer the blessing, and he had actually pushed him Even though Hyung Jin Nim was really reluctant, he had pushed him, you have to be the one who gives the blessing, not me, and not mother. He didn't want his wife to give the blessing. He wanted his son and his son's wife to give it. Because actually, it's very clear, our movement is based on the idea of parents. And the idea that the man is the subject position, the subject partner, and the woman is the object partner. And that together they make a beautiful harmony which can reflect the dual characteristics of God. So Father wanted a beautiful couple to lead our movement. I'm sure he wanted his wife to support that couple. But there was no question in Father's mind that a couple should lead our movement. But after Father died, Mother, Father's widow, refused to relinquish power. And she wanted to continue to lead the movement. And many people supported her in this. Especially the leaders of our movement in Korea, who were terrified of Hyung Jin Nim and his older brother Kook Jin Nim, who were shaking things up and cleaning house. They were aware that a lot of the older members had become entrenched in comfortable positions in Korea, in America, in Japan, and they didn't like it. They felt that it was holding our movement back, and it was not allowing our movement to grow, and it was actually not following Father's heart and direction. Father has never let us be comfortable. Father, for the 65 years he led our movement, the one thing that was constant was that he would never let people become comfortable. His teaching was clear. Your mind and body have to unite, centering on God. The fall of man disrupted the growth of the first human ancestors. Instead of continuing to grow toward God with their mind subject over their body, Eve gave her mind to Lucifer in love. She fell spiritually. Then, lost and confused, she turned to her real spouse, Adam. And instead of following him and uniting with him and repenting to him for what she'd done, she hid the fact that she'd fallen in love with Lucifer, and she seduced her husband Adam and made him fall physically with her sexually. So the first love relationship between man and woman was not centered on God and on the husband, but on Satan and on the wife. And history has progressed in its fallen, false way because of this reversal of dominion. Lucifer over woman, woman over man, man over God. Body over mind. Children over parents. Instead of the proper order of relationships, everything was flipped around. So Father was always clear. First things first, get your mind and body together, centering on your mind. The way of religion has always been clear. To restore proper mind-body unity, centering on the mind, which then centers on God, we should do two things. Strike our body so it doesn't overpower our mind. Fasting, prayer vigils, conditions that would require our body to be disciplined, to not be comfortable. So religions have always taught the danger of sloth, gluttony, greed, materialism. Anything that the body wants and it covets to be comfortable. Religions have taught us to strike the body for those things. And the second part is to help the mind to grow. So once the body has been subjugated by the mind should then seek God through prayer, through study, through good actions and love and caring for others and charity and good works. to restore the proper mind of unselfishness and oneness with God. This is the life of religion. That's a religious life. And Father completely encouraged that, but he took it even to the highest level. And he said, once you get your mind and body together, then I will give you the blessing of marriage. Not because you're perfect, not because you've restored everything perfectly, but because you're on your way. And God can't wait until you're perfect, because if he does, you won't ever have children. Because you will not be able to maybe reach full perfection or the ideal that God established for Adam and Eve in your lifetime. Maybe your children will have to reach it, or your children's children. It's going to take time. So I give you the blessing because you're committed to this lifestyle. All right? So that was Father's, in a nutshell, that was Father's teaching. So the cornerstone of that is don't be comfortable. You have to live a lifestyle that is always striving to perfect yourself, always striving to be a little bit better today than you were yesterday, a little closer to God today than you were yesterday, a little more in dominion of your body today than you were yesterday. So it's a long-term view, actually. It's a very long-term view. It's very patient, but it's also consistent. And it decries, it denies the idea that we should be comfortable and get comfortable in our bodies and live well and sort of have a nice home and just sort of chill. It puts us in a position saying, you are part of a historical movement toward returning to God. And so, when Father died, and actually for the last 10 years of Father's life, as he went through his 80s and into his 90s, he was no longer physically capable of the kind of activity that he had when he was younger, when he was in his 50s and 60s and 70s even. I've seen him speak for 10, 12 hours when he was in his 80s, but it was like, I could tell that he was in complete, denial of any kind of desire from his body. He would even wear diapers, so he wouldn't have to go to the bathroom. That's how serious he was. I mean, you could say he was nuts. Crazy for God. He was nuts for God. He wanted desperately to recover the original world that God had lost, that Adam and Eve had lost. And he wanted to do it in his lifetime if he could. But of course there are failures and there's setbacks and there are betrayals and all kinds of things going on as fallen man is trying to cope with this new message and new direction. You know, I think it was Machiavelli or it was The Art of War by, I think, what is his name, the Chinese philosopher, that said, keep your friends close to you, but keep your enemies closer. Right? Because you want to know what they're doing. Right? So in keeping with that, I think Father brought close to him many leaders were people that were incredibly ambitious, were incredibly gifted, talented in terms of money making or political work or, organizational skills. They were talented, gifted people, but many times they were the most ambitious or maybe self-centered or in some way not unselfish necessarily. And Father wanted them close to him so he could constantly put pressure on them, constantly guide them. But when he died, and as he got older and approached death, and he turned over the reins of power to his son, and his sons, Hyung Jin Nim and Hyung Jin Nim, began to clean house and sort of push out of leadership and out of power many of these kind of power-seeking people. They made a lot of enemies. And I think when Father died, those people gathered around Mother and encouraged her to continue keeping power because those boys are a little bit out of control, you know what I mean? And so what happened was our movement split. And I think it was kind of inevitable, because we were not fulfilling Father's dream while he was alive even. We were always trying to avoid taking responsibility because we were still fallen people and having fallen desires and wanting to do things in a selfish way. And Father would always push us. He was, the fancy word is indefatigable, which means he never got tired in his efforts to change us and help us to grow. But he was one man, pushing and pulling a movement of thousands and later millions of people. And he couldn't control everything, and he didn't want to. He wanted us to take a responsibility for ourselves. Ultimately, God's ideal can't be fulfilled by somebody cracking the whip. It has to be done from inside. Right? So, it was inevitable, I think, that God take our movement that had grown a lot, done a lot of good things. I think our international marriage, the ecumenical work we did to bring religious unity, the interracial and interreligious harmony work we've done, the economic work we've done to feed the third world with krill and fish powder and different protein sources, and going to the third world actually and helping the developing world develop techniques and technology so it could sustain itself. Our work with leaders and governments around the world to promote more democratic and more religious forms of government. Our work against communism, which actually brought down the Soviet Union in the 1980s and 1990s. Father's work for unification of North and South Korea. His meeting with Kim Il-sung. His meeting with Kim Jong-il. The constant effort Father did to bring a unified world. The International Highway Project, which promoted a Bering Strait tunnel and bridge which would connect the land masses of North and South America with Asia, and that would link the entire world through a highway system which is still in progress, still in the works. I can go on and on and on and on. Our movement did amazing things under Father's guidance. None of that is wasted, none of that is lost. But the core of our movement is the perfection of our relationship with God. And it's not enough to make our movement a political movement or a social movement. At core, it is a spiritual, religious movement that is trying to build perfect people. Perfection and love. And we still had a lot of work to do. We still have a lot of work to do there. And we also have to bring the entire world in to our movement, right? We have to bring everybody. So our movement did a lot of great things, and none of that can be denied. But we can't rest on our laurels. We can't rest on our accomplishments. We have to constantly be pushing ourselves to a higher level. So when Father died, it may have been inevitable that people who did not want to continue to grow spiritually and people who were pushing themselves to try to reach Father's standard would start to split. And the center of that split became the fight between Hyung Jin Nim and his mother. Mother was much more supporting the status quo, the way things were. And she wanted herself to stay in position of power and responsibility. Hyung Jin Nim felt that Father had passed the baton, passed the torch to him, and he wanted to continue to take responsibility to honor his father's tradition and legacy and Father's appointment. And so these two individuals got into conflict, and Mother kicked him out of position. She took away all of his positions and responsibilities in the church in Korea and in the international movement. And he went to Pennsylvania, where he began like a wilderness course. Mother, meanwhile, in order to maintain power, has begun to change Father's words and redact, which means change the speeches that Father gave that criticized her for wanting to keep a kind of comfortable, powerful position. Father was scolding her in the last 10 years a lot. And she began to change Father's speeches to remove that content. And Hyung Jin Nim felt this was a betrayal of Father. So this conflict split the church, split our movement. Now, that got so serious that finally Hyung Jin Nim felt that Mother was could no longer stand as Father's bride and wife. That she had relinquished, our movement has a tradition of putting, for instance, 2 chairs, which represent Father and Mother. There's always 2 chairs in our movement. Always, always, always. If Father wasn't there, Mother would sit on Mother's chair, and Father's chair would be vacant. If Mother wasn't there, Father would sit in his chair, and Mother's chair would be vacant. There would always be 2 chairs. But shortly after Father died, Mother removed Father's chair completely and began sitting in the only chair on the stage. Her words, her actions began to suggest that she had deviated so far from Father's teaching that she could no longer be considered the responsible leader of our movement. And Hyung Jin Nim said that she had betrayed Father. His own mother, he said, had betrayed Father. And finally, when Mrs. Kang, the first disciple of Father in Korea, South Korea, escaped from Korea to join Hyung Jin Nim in the wilderness of Pennsylvania, God told Hyung Jin Nim, this will be Father's wife. Mrs. Moon has left her position. Now Father needs a true wife that he can stand with. And so Hyung Jin Nim, in a special ceremony on September 23rd of 2017, basically a year and a half ago, he married Mrs. Kang spiritually to Father and put her in the position of the true mother that his own mother had held for 52 years. This, of course, was incredibly controversial in our movement. Mrs. Kang passed away at the age of 92 just 3 weeks ago. And so last week we were attending her Sunghwa, her ceremony of ascension. So my title for this sermon, this is a little bit of background. The reason I'm sharing this is that I want to talk about the kingdom. That was my title, right? At the beginning I said the kingdom. Father said in the divine principle that if Adam and Eve had not fallen, if human beings had never given their love and their sovereignty away to Satan, if we had maintained our true godly sovereignty, what would have happened? What would the world be like now? Obviously, whatever that original ideal was is what we should be working toward now, right? Doesn't that make sense? That if Adam and Eve had not fallen, God would want to build the same world now that world would look like. God would want to build the same world with us to restore us and the world that we live in to the point that it would be resembling and be the same as the world that Adam and Eve should have created, had they not fallen. Okay? Make sense?
Yes.
Yes, right? Makes sense.
Yes.
But we're so deviated from that, and our history is so convoluted and complex, that it's very difficult to say with certainty what would God's ideal be. In our modern world, we have God-denying socialism and communism, which says that Christianity is the opium of the people. We have Christians who believe in a kind of pie in the sky when you die, a utopian vision that includes a sort of supernatural intervention by God which takes Christians out of the world and builds a kingdom of heaven in the spiritual world. But this world is going to go to hell in a handbasket. So Christians have abdicated their responsibility to changing this world. And they've allowed materialists, both on the capitalist side and on the communist side, to fight for power. Meanwhile, they're sort of hanging out in the corner saying, I don't really think we should get involved. So in the vacuum of godly presence, politics, economy have been fought over by people who, without proper guidance from Christianity and from God. So we can't look at Christianity and say that is the ideal that God intended before the fall. People praying that God will intervene and save us and that we can go to heaven when we die. We can't say that that's God's ideal for earth. At the same time, clearly, the kind of materialistic, backstabbing, awful kind of capitalism and communism, socialism that we see in the world is also completely a denial of God's ideal. So what can we say? Father said, if Adam and Eve had not fallen, their children, their eldest son would have become the king of the family, and his son, and his son, and his son, and his eldest son. The eldest son is the keeper of the lineage. But think about it. If you have children and you love all your children, you want the eldest son to take responsibility, but not a kind of power where he is controlling like a dictator or a despot or a tyrant, right? A good parent is loving and trying to get everyone to take responsibility to help each other. So in a family, we see a kind of socialism, don't we? I heard my wife actually reading this in Korean and in English, and I just happened to read it this morning also. This is the section of the principle, the last half of principle. Very detailed discussion of politics, economy, and religion. And the separate courses that each of them took in the last 2,000 years. Very interesting discussion. I don't want to go into too much of its detail now, but I want to say that the world of mutual prosperity, common cause, and a shared system of values is what we're working toward. Let me read it in the words of the principle. In seeking for a socialistic society on heaven's side, their original mind, meaning our fallen human beings' original mind, has drawn them to the ideals of interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universally shared values. So we can agree that the ideal world is a world of interdependence. No economist in modern society believes that unbridled capitalism can lead to the ideal world. Meaning, just every man for himself, look out for number one, self-centered capitalism. Adam Smith and maybe Keynesian economy talks about this idea of capitalism, the market, the free market, helping everyone to find, the balance of what the proper price should be for any commodity. But everyone has recognized that when given the opportunity, a capitalist will try to get monopoly, control of the market, right? In other words, it'd be fine if the marketplace were absolutely controlled by, say, a parental figure which kept everything fair and kept everything honest and legal. But we know that cartels form and monopolies form, and backroom dealings are being dealt with, right? That control prices. Prices are being controlled. They're not being set by the marketplace. There's an artificial influence by power, right? Capitalists seek power. So the market cannot determine its own destiny if we want to build the ideal world. We have to realize, and actually, John Nash, who was the famous mathematician who had schizophrenia and who was featured in the movie A Beautiful Mind, starring Russell Crowe, right? Beautiful Academy Award-winning film, A Beautiful Mind. Very hard to watch, but anyway, very good movie. Talks about John Nash, who really is the first mathematician and economist who proves that a win-win economy is actually far better for everyone than a win-lose kind of economy. He talks about how there's 4 women and 4 men in a bar. There's a great scene in the beginning where there's this one beautiful woman and 4 women that are not quite as beautiful. And these 4 men are discussing how they can go about, you know, making a move on these 5 women, and so they can all be happy and all get, you know, I won't say the word in Sunday service, but so they can all have a relationship, okay? And they're discussing it, and Nash suddenly has a brilliant stroke of insight. He sees, if we all go for the beautiful woman, she will reject us all. Or she'll choose one and reject the rest of us, and then the others will be so angry that they were not gone for first, he says, that they will reject us. And if we go there and she rejects all of us, and then we go like to them as second best, they're all going to be offended that we didn't go for them first, and we'll get rejected. So he says the thing that makes the most sense for us to do is to ignore her completely and go for the 4 lesser beautiful women and actually make relationships with them, and we'll be happy. All of us will be happy. All of them will be happy. The only one that will be confused is the beautiful woman. So in terms of being successful, when we recognize what the others need and we take into account everybody's need, we can build a solution that satisfies everybody far better than if we try to everyone man for himself. Capitalism is built on the idea of every man for himself. Satan imitated in a defective way God's ideal of sharing by creating communism 100 years ago. Communism says the state should force everybody to share. It doesn't work. It's not built on the idea that everyone should have a God-given responsibility in building their own families, their own society, their own community, their own nation, their own world. It denies human freedom, dignity, and their relationship with God. So of course it doesn't work, and it failed. It collapsed. Communism can't work. But it was Satan's brilliance to imitate what God was going to do. That's why it was so attractive to so many intellectuals. Because it was based on an idea of interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universally shared values. So if you're a parent and you have children, you want them to be interdependent, right? They should help each other out, encourage each other, work together, do things in harmony with each other. You want there to be mutual prosperity. You don't want to see any one of your children being so rich and the other child can't even feed himself. You want everyone to help each other out. If someone is being lazy and therefore is not making any money, the other children should scold him. Help him out, right? Get him on his feet. Make him work hard. But lovingly do it, under the parent's guidance. And that person should carry their weight at least, right? But we know that as human beings, we can produce a lot more than we need for our own lives, right? God created human beings. This is amazing. We were created with an idea of abundance, that we can create more than we consume. A human being can create more than he needs. Especially as science develops and we become more and more technologically savvy, we can create far more than we can consume. So there's no need for selfishness if we share. So the idea of mutual prosperity everyone can agree on. Even a hardened capitalist can agree on this. Why? If he's the only rich person, no one can afford to buy his products. So in the developing world, and our capitalist society has realized this, if they become wealthy, they become good consumers. So it's actually beneficial to encourage growth, economic growth in the developing world. No one should be poor. Poor people don't buy anything. Everyone should be rich. So mutual prosperity. Universally shared values. Law is based on our value system. The Ten Commandments and the Christian value system became the basis of European and American law. British common law and American law, based on the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, was based on Christian values. The idea of freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, freedom of petition, freedom of press. These are values that were the fruit of, at that time, 1700 years of Christian history. The Bill of Rights, the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence were Christian documents. We need mutually shared values. Otherwise, we cannot get along as a society. If you believe in freedom of speech, but I believe that you should only be allowed to say what I think you should say, we've got a problem. Actually, that's one of the problems right now. The left in America has become so demagogic, so fundamentalist about their political correctness and about microaggression and the fact that you're not allowed to say anything that offends me, that they've taken away freedom of speech and press. People cannot speak their minds for fear that they're going to be, railroaded out of town. Even maybe accused of committing a crime. Hate speech. This kind of demagoguery has invaded the left in America. And we have a problem with shared values. The left wants there to be such political correctness that no one is allowed freedom of speech anymore. So this is a real problem. So we do need to have a discussion and an elevation of our consciousness for there to become universally shared values. Not just in the United States, but between every country of the world. And that's not easy, because values come from religion. And as long as we have different religions and different religious views, we're going to have conflict of values. Islam teaches that a man is allowed to beat his wife, but only with a short stick. He's not allowed to beat her with a metal rod, for instance. That would be very damaging. But he is allowed to beat her with a stick, but no bigger than this. You can't have a big stick, because you don't want to damage your wife. But if she's caught doing anything that you don't like, as a husband, you're allowed to beat her. This conflicts with the Christian value that men and women are equal in value, and that in their relationship they should have equal protection by the law and equal protection from any kind of physical harm. So we have a problem there. Islam has some wonderful points about charity and living for the sake of the community. They're very aware of the need for people to live for the community. But if you're not a Muslim, you are not considered quite as human as a Muslim is. So you don't necessarily have the same rights in a Muslim society. And also there's no freedom of religion. You can't have freedom of worship in a fundamental Islamic society. So we have a problem between Islam and Christianity. And that has to be worked out. Finally, this ideal of mutual prosperity interdependence, universally shared values can only come about when we have a revolution in our understanding of God and how God relates to human beings and what was the fall and how has God been working through history to fix it and what is the nature of proper growth toward God. How does that look? This is why God is sending the second coming of Christ. This is why the Messiah comes, in order to bring one universally shared value system, which can then lead us to love each other like a family. Because if I'm a parent and I have 6 billion children, I want them all to grow. I want them to love each other, take care of each other. The ideal world, in other words, the ideal economic and political system resembles socialism in some ways, but has enormous amount of independence together with interdependence. There's individual responsibility, but also a sense of mutual prosperity and interdependence and common cause. In other words, if you feel that everyone on the earth is your brother or sister, your cousin, you may have a different character. You may want to work harder than they do. You may want to accumulate money. But if you see them hurting, you're going to help them out. You're not going to accumulate so much wealth that you're living on an island paradise somewhere with a 39 or 155 room mansion and a jet port and a helipad and your own yachts and everything like this while people are starving in an island just next door to you. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. So, how do we get there? The kingdom is built when we begin to share Father's teaching, the divine principle, and everyone can begin to grow beyond their Christian cultural sphere, or the Islamic cultural sphere, or the Buddhist cultural sphere, or the Confucian cultural sphere, or the Hindu cultural sphere, or every one of these cultural spheres that has served its people fairly well for thousands of years, but finally has reached a limit as to what it can help people to grow to. Father came as the second coming of Christ, bringing a truth that can build unity to all religions and elevate all religions to the highest point. And back to the point we started with, our movement is right now fractured, but that's a good thing. The conflict leads us to question, who's right, who's wrong, what should I do with my life? I can no longer just follow, blindly follow. I have to take ownership of my decisions now. Nothing's easy anymore. In a way, when Father was here, we all sort of hid in Father's shadow. We let Father do the talking, Father do the walking. We supported Him, but that's not what He wanted. He wanted us not to support Him, but to become Him. He wanted people who could become second Sun Myung Moons, He said. And we didn't do it. And now, Hyung Jin Nim is leading the way to a more interdependent, mutual prosperity, universally shared values vision. And one of the things that's most controversial about him, and this I'll conclude with, this is kind of like maybe a sermon for the next week or next week after that. Oma, would you get me Hyung Jin Nim's book? Hyung Jin Nim has promoted the Second Amendment movement, which is the right to bear arms. He said that in a Christian society, when people are really aware of their responsibility to love and take care of their brothers and sisters, they have the right to bear arms. In our modern society, it's true that there are people holding weapons that should not be holding weapons. But taking away weapons from everybody is not the way to solve that problem. Actually, proper arms education and, again, divine principle education so that people are becoming aware of their role and responsibility as sons and daughters of God, that we're all caretakers of each other. I am my brother's keeper. When Cain killed his brother Abel in the Garden of Eden, and God asked him, "Where's your brother?" He said, "I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?" And God said to him, "Your brother's blood is crying out to me from the ground." And he marked Cain and drove him out of the garden. We are our brother's keeper. Do you want to be like Cain, who just killed his brother Abel and says to God defiantly, "Am I my brother's keeper?" Or do you want to be a good man or woman and say, "Yes, I am my brother's keeper. I have a responsibility to protect my family and my community and my nation and my world, centered on God." And so with the right to bear arms, Americans have what's really a unique right. Europeans don't have it. Asians don't have it. Africans don't have it. Central and South Americans don't have it. Most countries in the world do not allow freedom of weaponry. But America does. And not just to protect your home, but in case the government becomes a tyranny. The Founding Fathers believed that the people should be able to rise up and form militias to overthrow the tyranny of government. So this book, The Rod of Iron Kingdom, wonderful book. If you call me or write me, I'll send you a copy, just for cost, whatever it cost us. Wonderful book, about $5, $6. I can send it to you, give it to you. Great book about the Second Amendment and the attack on the Second Amendment in America and what the role of arms should be. We should become shepherds. Like Jesus is the good shepherd, right? So Christians see themselves as sheep following the good shepherd. But we should become like Christ and become shepherds and protect and take care of God's kingdom. So if you have the calling to be a son or daughter of God and to keep God's kingdom in your heart, you should bear arms so that you can be a shepherd and protect the other people in the community from people who would do them harm. Does not give us license to use those weapons for self-centered gain or because of rage. Quite the opposite. Proper gun ownership means understanding you never use a weapon in anger. You never use a weapon to gain something over someone else. You use a weapon for protection and for promoting safety. Why do you think the police have weapons? Why do you think the military has weapons? The National Guard. But we, who are the first line of defense against criminality, should also bear weapons if we have the heart to do so. So some of you may not have that heart to do so, that's fine. But there's a famous saying, when seconds count in a dangerous situation, when seconds count, the police are just minutes away. When seconds count, the police are just minutes away. So if homeowners have guns, and we see this statistically, in areas that homeowners do have guns, there is almost no criminality in those communities. The rate of criminality drops by 10, 20 times. The most dangerous places in America are gun-free zones. Chicago has the highest murder rate in America, and it does not allow its citizens to bear arms. New York does not allow its citizens to bear arms. Schools do not allow anyone to bear arms, and school shootings only happen there. If you're a gunman and you want to kill people, you're going to go somewhere where you're not going to get shot. You're not going to go to Texas and some place where everyone's toting a gun and start shooting up a bar, because everyone's going to pull their gun out and blow you away. But Chicago, no one's allowed to bear arms. It's the highest murder rate in the country. So Hyung Jin Nim is teaching, bringing Christianity to a higher level, saying if you're called to be a shepherd, not just a sheep, then you should bear arms and you should protect your community and you should protect the rights of anyone to bear arms, the Second Amendment. So that's a controversial sort of corollary to where he's going. But I believe that he is carrying Father's teaching to bring the kingdom. And each of us is responsible for our part in it, to do home church and tribal messiahship, and to teach Father's teaching, the divine principle, and to elevate everyone's spirituality so that we become God's sons and daughters and brothers and sisters. And that's all I want to share today. Oma, do you want to add anything?
Yeah.
Come closer. That's good.
God's kingdom is man and woman together can create the world and centering God and God's love and word. That is an exciting moment, but also furious moment to think about. We have to really take responsibility and also that really deeply pray, and we have to choose wisely.
Thank you. So please contact us. We have a website, blessedfamilysanctuary.org. We have a YouTube channel, Blessed Family Sanctuary. We post our videos every week. We have other videos about the divine principle on our website. We also have a phone number, and you can call us or you can email us at blessedfamilysanctuary@gmail.com. Our phone number here is 603-915-9129. And you can contact us by phone, by email, by letter, any way you would like. And we'll try to contact you, get in touch with you right away. Email is probably the fastest or best, or phone. But we would like to meet with you. If you're living in the Gorham, Berlin, North Country of New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine area, and you want to contact us, I can even meet with you directly. We can meet somewhere and chat. You can come to our home, come to our service on Sundays. Or if you live far away and you can't come, we can connect by Skype or by email or by phone, and I can talk with you and I can get you started on your own journey to meeting God through True Parents teaching. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And let's say a prayer together. Please join us in prayer. Heavenly Father, we want to thank you so much for the kingdom. You've never given up on your vision of a world, a family that's a big family, where the descendants of Adam and Eve would form one huge universal family. Of course, there would be a central lineage, but that central lineage would see itself as being the responsible center of a world of heart, a world of love, a world of peace. Not a dictator or a tyrant or a demagogue or a despot, Father, but a loving, central parental lineage. I pray that we can establish that world now, and we can recover all of what Father gave us and build it into our families, into our society, into our nation, into our world. Father, I pray your guidance and blessing on everyone listening at home and everyone here, that you can continue to guide them through their lives, and that they can become your sons and daughters, and we can all become brothers and sisters in one universally held family, Father, centering on you. I ask your blessing on this day. We offer everything. Thank you for spring coming. We offer everything in the name of Raman and Tamiko Montanaro, a blessed central family. 축복 중심 가정 라만과 타미코 몬타나루 이름으로 보고드립니다. 아주. 아멘. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.